Well, you know what? There's still a lot of question, a lot included in the plan, and a lot for students and parents to consider when it comes to navigating the costs of college. So we're turning things over to Tim Lamberts. He's over in Studio 61 for a breakdown. Tim?
Yeah, because here's the thing. A lot of this announcement by the president applies to people who have already graduated college and are still dealing with those student loans. Not quite as certain, to be perfectly honest with you, what this means going forward for students who are getting ready to go to college or who are in college. So to have a wider discussion about how to just try to cut down on the amount of debt you might have, I'm happy to have with me right now Katherine Presutti, the Director of Student Financial Aid at the University of Hartford. It is a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, glad to have you here. And I hate to sort of start by just talking about what we don't know, but I sort of get that's the takeaway at this point, that for a lot of people getting ready to go to the University of Hartford, we're not sure what to make of all this. What do you make of all this at this point?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, at this point, there's a lot of unknowns still about what this is going to mean for the future. We know right now we've got some basic information about what this is going to mean for alumni of the University of Hartford, but we don't know what it's going to mean for our students who just moved in this past weekend or are going to be moving in the future.
All right, so let's talk about then, in general, I think the idea that we can all get behind is to try to minimize debt in whatever way you can. And you were telling me you think there's probably a lot of avenues potential students can take that they might not be aware of.
Sure. As a financially professional, I mean, I am constantly working with students to help them figure out ways to minimize debt. We know debt is part of the process when we're going to college. Tuition costs have continued to rise, and that's not going to change in the very near future. So we're talking to students regularly about ways that they can minimize debt by applying for additional scholarships. Many local foundations, local nonprofits have scholarships for students to apply for. Requires a little bit of effort on the students' part, but certainly worthwhile for them. We also talk a lot with students and families about using payment arrangements. So students think, well, if I can't afford to pay the whole amount out of pocket, I'm not going to use a payment plan at all. That's not the case. Find a way to pay a little bit, again, thereby minimizing the debt in the long run. And then the last thing that I often talk with families about is employment opportunities. So finding a way to work on campus just a few hours a week will help you to either pay off your costs or to use that to help pay back your student loans or keep the interest down on your student loans while you're in school.
Now, what do you and the folks in your office do to try to help students to that end at the University of Hartford?
Sure, a couple of things. So first and foremost, we are constantly in contact with local scholarship agencies, so we have that information readily available to help share with students. The University of Hartford does have a University of Hartford scholarship portal where we'll post those local scholarships, but we also have some donor-based scholarships that students can use and apply for there as well. Our office also will counsel students on the employment. So our office does run the federal work-study program on campus, so we will work with students to help them find a job on campus and start working as soon as possible. Just
curious, I don't know if you know the answer to this. How many students do you think could reasonably take advantage of the on-campus job? I mean, are there enough jobs that everybody who needs that kind of help could find it?
Of course, that's going to vary by institution, but at the University of Hartford, yes. I mean, we have about 350 to 400 students working on campus every year.
Last question, again, I'm not sure if you have the answer to this. To what degree can you help people when they do decide that they need to go the federal loan route? Is there any help you give to, or at least guidance?
Yeah, absolutely. We're constantly working with students and counseling them on what it means to be a student loan borrower. So we're talking to them about things such as interest rates and what they need to know about interest rates, what repayment looks like on these loans, and giving them that information. And of course, there's an extensive counseling that's offered through the U.S. Department of Education before any student can borrow a federal student loan.
And what we were talking about before is the portion of the president's plan that is going to sort of let the U.S. government take care of interest so long as you're making payments, the minimum payments. Is that going to extend into the future? Unfortunately, we just don't know at this point. So we're going to stay on top of it, but I like these ideas to try to minimize that debt in the first place, because that's going to work every time. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.